Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's study. And we're going to continue looking at Daniel chapter 12. And we'll see if we start drawing this stuff on a line. I'm still looking at the numbers. But before we begin, can you join me in a word of prayer? Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for all the things that you teach us. And we're thankful for those that participate and those that watch these videos. We know, Lord, that your Holy Spirit is working upon hearts all around the world and upon our hearts, and that you're seeking to teach us of the meekness and the lowliness of Christ, and that we can depend upon you in all things at all times. And we know, Lord, the trials that we face are meant to shape our characters in this regard. We ask, Lord, that your Spirit can be here to teach and instruct us, to correct us. And I pray that it will work upon the hearts of those watching the video as well. We just ask that as we look at these things, that you can guide and direct, and that these things that we study will change us and affect those around us. We ask for your angels' care and protection in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, good morning again. Now, so a couple of things, not really related to what we're studying here, but sort of, in the sense that there's a guy, Jim Bob or something, who keeps commenting on my videos. I'm not sure what his church is that he belongs to. He's definitely not a Seventh-day Adventist. And he has some strange things he says that I don't fully understand. But he's talking about this red heifer offering that, so I'd assume he's a dispensationalist of some sort, because you got a lot of these people who are talking about this idea that, the Jews are going to rebuild the temple, and they're getting this red heifer that has, I guess, it's completely red, like it has no white hairs on it at all or something. And I was just wondering if anybody knows where this crazy idea has come from. Anybody have a clue about it? Why everybody's talking about this red heifer offering? Nobody?
Well, they keep this idea because I believe if we go back into the initial offerings in the wilderness, wasn't there a red heifer that they used?
Yeah. So the red heifer offering, I've studied that years ago, right? So the red heifer offering is simply when somebody touches a dead body, they're going to be ceremonially unclean. And so they take this red heifer and they burn it with hyssop and scarlet, and they have running water that they mix with it and stuff. And this is going to be set aside so that when somebody, a relative dies and you have to deal with touching a dead body, then you can this is applied to you, this red heifer offering, these ashes of the red heifer, and then there's a certain period of time, I think it's 7 days or whatever, and then you're no longer ceremonially unclean. But I've tried to find the origin of, like, who came up with this idea that somehow you have to have a red heifer offered in order to rebuild the third temple. To me, it's just kind of kooky stuff. I mean, it's like you have these evangelicals and dispensationalists and Pentecostals just getting caught up in these different things. If it isn't blood moons or, the 7-year sabbatical cycle in the economy or whatever, it's always something new. but I just wondered if anybody had looked into it, because I mean, I spent time looking into it and it was like just utter nonsense, but nobody knows when this started. Okay, so I don't know. Anyway, it's just one of those weird things. You just always have new things popping up all the time that people are looking at. And it's one of those things that makes Christians look kooky, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, it just boggles my mind. But hopefully Jim Bob keeps watching the videos and starts to learn something. But if you read the comments, you can see he's just completely clueless when it comes to the Bible prophecy. From a historical understanding of it. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on that, see if anybody knows anything. Okay, so nobody really knows much about that. It's not usually something that's in our purview as far as being Bible students, but he seems to think it's really important. Okay, so going back to Daniel chapter 12, we have all of these symbols in these first few verses dealing with the close of probation, right? And so we know that if we apply, we look at the historical application, it's really clear. This is, of course, things that are still going to happen. The close of probation has not occurred. We can't know the time of the close of probation. We know the order of events because we've looked at them. So we know that obviously the Sunday law is going to come before that, the loud cry, and then the martyrs, and then the close of probation. And then after the close of probation, we have the time of Jacob's trouble, which occurs during the sixth plague. So the plagues are going to begin after the close of probation. And then we have, of course, the special resurrection, right? Right, so that's going to be in verse 2. Many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. So we looked at that a little bit. And then now when it talks here in verse 3, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. We never looked at this yet. And they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Now, so a good question would be, why is this comparison used when it talks about the wise? So there's a number of questions that I was thinking about. So we know that there's going to be those that are delivered, everyone that's found written in the book, right? And then it's going to have the special resurrection. And when it mentions the special resurrection, then it's going to mention the wise. And it's going to use this comparison of they shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they're going to turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. So I don't remember ever really looking into that phrase there, that sentence. But what would we see here? Just on a very basic level.
The comparison between the wise and foolish. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So we see the two classes there.
Yeah, so we do see the two classes. Yeah.
And when it says shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, I'm thinking of the covenant with Abraham. Tell the stars.
Okay. Well, okay, so okay, so the stars, the covenant with Abraham, has to do with the covenant.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. And then I was thinking of, well, before Adam and Eve fell, they had this cloak, this cloak of brightness, this radiance from God. Well, we're going to have that back. I mean, if by faith we're all going to be there, right? Saved. So yeah. That's what's coming to me as I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. Now we do have, of course, the firmament mentioned in Genesis chapter 1, verse 6 to 8.
Of course.
Most mentioned, right? And the importance there would it goes back to the creation of the world, right? And then it talks about the stars, and that's going to talk about the stars in Genesis chapter 1 as well, because they're going to be created. So I'm wondering if part of this reference is going back to Genesis 1. And when we deal with the stars, I mean, this has to do with, well, the sun and the moon and the stars have to do with timekeeping. So I'm wondering if maybe that's why that reference is there. So
I think you're right, because timekeeping is being attacked right now. Like, people are confusing prophetic time and the symbols with that to actually time setting as in fortune telling.
yeah, so there's obviously this problem with time setting. So I mean, and that's the thing that I look at with that I think is the problem with this movement in the direction that it's gone. And that direction, though, has kind of been there for a long time with time setting. And it's not so much setting actual dates, like using chronology to set dates, but it's sort of this getting things out of order of what is supposed to happen. So, you know, a person can talk about maybe Jesus will come back this year, right? You know, and of course, we know that's not the case. Jesus is not going to come back this year. And how do we know that?
I'd ask them, where is the worldwide Sunday law? Are we all being forced to go to mass, etc.?
We have so many things that have to occur, and there is just a basic logistics. Even when you say, well, the last events will be rapid ones. Yeah, well, they are rapid. Things are happening very rapidly, but still not within a year, and definitely not within, you know, we got what, 8 months left this year. But, you know, people will ignore the order of events. Like, to even talk about a Sunday law when the world hasn't been warned, the Sunday law is not going to come first, and then we're going to you know, prepare Seventh-day Adventists to stand for the Sunday law. They're already going to be tested at that time. You know, there isn't going to be time to like give a message to Seventh-day Adventists so that they can be prepared for the Sunday law when the Sunday law is already here. So there's a lot of things that have to occur. There's a lot of work that has to be done. Now, God, of course, is going to take the work into his own hand, and we will see things happen in ways that we don't expect, but it's still going to take time. So, and we saw this with in Millerite history, where they just set aside all of these things that they had said were going to happen before Christ returns, and just ignored them and said, well, you know, he's going to come October 22nd, 1844, but, you know, we haven't had the plagues yet. You know, we haven't had the close of probation. You know, there's lots of things that have to happen before the close of probation. None of these things were happening. But they set them aside. And I understand why they did. I'm not saying that they were wrong in doing that in the ultimate sense, but in a logical sense, they were. It was not logical. But, you know, and Christ, of course, did not come back October 22nd, 1844. He didn't close up the work on the Day of Atonement. He began the work on the Day of Atonement. And then that wasn't just it's the Day of Atonement, but it's not a day to us, right? It's obviously been a lot more than one day since October 22nd, 1844. So the Day of Atonement is obviously a period of time. It represents a period of time in history in which we are in now. But there are many things that still have to happen. And so when we look at this reference here to the creation and to the firmament and the stars, I think it's a reference to time wrapping up. It's the new earth is going to be there, but it's also in God's time scale, right? It's in God has seen these things, and he's going to give a lot of information about time here in the following verses. So he's going to bring us up to the new heavens and the new earth, and then Daniel's going to be told to shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. So we know that running to and fro has to do with studying the book of Daniel, and that there's going to be an increase of knowledge in regard to the prophecies. So these verses are going to bring us up to the second coming of Christ, to the new heaven and the new earth. And then Daniel's going to be instructed to seal up the book, right? To shut up the words and seal up the book. And if we're going to make a present truth application of this, and I think we can, we're going to need to understand this, the historical correctly, but also I think there must be keys in here as we've been using in these symbols. So these different spans of time. So we had a question. So if we go back here, I guess where it talks about many that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. So we were addressing this before. And what would be the present truth application of the special resurrection? Because obviously it's not referring to people being truly resurrected, but it is using the illustration of waking up. So I guess the question is, when does that occur? And when they wake up, there's going to be these two classes, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So where would we place this second verse? So we'll look at the third verse, but we need to place this second verse. And we haven't really done that. We tried to look at some.
Could that be when the breath, sorry, Theodore, could that be when the breath comes into the dead, dry bones? The breath of prophecy?
Okay, so we talked about that, and I would say no, right? And why did I say no last time? Like, there is a connection, but what was it about Ezekiel 37? Why I wouldn't put this in the present truth application as Ezekiel 37? At least in the broader application of Ezekiel 37. We could take a present truth application of Ezekiel 37, but so we looked at that.
I guess I missed it. But then I thought, okay, but it's not that, then how about with July 18th, when some fell away, they gave up, and some decided we're going to persist and we're going to find out what went wrong.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that we have here is we have the everlasting gospel being represented, right? Because the everlasting gospel is a three-step testing prophetic message that develops and demonstrates two classes of worshipers. And so we would say that if we're going to take this as a present truth application, many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, that would have to be the everlasting gospel presented at the end of time, right? That it would have to represent a message that wakes people up. Does that make sense to people? Okay, so if we take this everlasting life, we got 5769. Right, so 5769, and we add 2416. So that's everlasting life. And that gives us 8185. Now, so I know that we had at one time, I think we had the number 8184. I don't know if people remember that. 8184 is the number of days from 9/11 to my birthday that I had this year when I turned 61, right? So that's an inclusive count from 9/11 to February 6th. It includes February 6th, 2024. I don't know if people remember that when we looked at 8184. Nobody remembers that? And so obviously 8185 is going to bring you one day past my birthday. It's going to bring you to February 7th, 2024. I'm just seeing if I have this written in the notes at all. Maybe I didn't even write it down. It's not in these notes anywhere, but I know we looked at it before. At least I did. So it's going to bring us to February 7th. Does that mean anything? Just, and that's an inclusive count. So if we go back here. So if we go 8185 and then just do a cardinal count, it's going to bring me to February 8th, 2024. It's kind of interesting. We got February 8th is January 26th, so you get a 126 there. February 7th, of course, is January 25th. You get 1126 in the Jewish calendar. Okay, so we got this everlasting life. And then we have and then we looked at shame. Shame is 2781. It's 1872 backwards. And so we know that's one of our primary symbols for July 18, 2020. And then it's just going to have like everlasting contempt. And that's going to be 5769 plus 1860. So 5769 plus 1860. And that's going to give us 7629. We count again from 9/11. And we talked about this before, but that actually brings us to, if we do an inclusive count, that's going to bring us to the second day of the 5th month, July 31st on the Gregorian calendar, and July 18th on the Julian. So would that mean anything? If we just did a cardinal count, it'd bring us to August 1st. But So do these symbols help, these spans of time, help us at all in trying to determine where we're going to place this? Now, of course, we have the July 1820 symbol with shame. So you got everlasting life, and you have shame and everlasting contempt. Is there any way that we can connect this with the three angels' messages in Millerite history and thus apply them to our history? Are people following what I'm doing? Or somebody not following? Because I'm saying that we would have to look at this message that awakens people from a sleep, right? And that sleep would represent, obviously not death here, but it would represent a spiritual condition. And it's going to wake people up, but it's going to develop two classes of worshipers. Is that the everlasting gospel? Is that the message that this movement has proclaimed?
Well, you would think that fear God and give glory to him for the hour of its judgment has come would wake a lot of people up.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we can relate it to the everlasting gospel, right? So this is a message to wake us up. Now, often we put that at 9/11, correct? Do we put waking up at 9/11? Have we done that in the past?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if we're going to make a present truth application of this, we would need to put that waking up at 11/9/19. Wouldn't we? That it would be referring to this movement? And we saw that when we took the dust of the earth and we added those together, we got 6210, and that's the same digits in 1260. And we counted from September 11th to September 11th, right? Because it happens to be exactly 17 years, which is rather interesting. And September 11, 2018, we're going to connect to the presentation of Ezra, and also the fact it's the first day of the first month on the Islamic calendar. Right? So we had done that. And that's why I'm counting from 9/11 with these different numbers. I'm trying to see, do these bring us somewhere? Or do they lead us to some dates that we could look at symbolically? I know it's a lot of numbers. Now, if I take, the word like some to shame and everlasting contempt, and I add those together, if I start on November 9th, 1989, that's going to bring me to July 13th, 2019. Now that's the ninth day of the fourth month, which is the date in which the walls of Jerusalem were broken down. Right, the ninth day of the fourth month on the biblical calendar. But July 13th on our calendar. So that's going to be 7 and 13, 7th month, 13th day. I don't know if that it's a Sabbath. It's during let me see, in 2019. So this is going to be before the rebellion of Baal Peor, a little bit before it. So maybe it has something to do with that history. I don't know when their camp meeting started. In 2019, so they had the camp meeting in Germany there, right? That's where the rebellion's going to happen, and that's going to be later. So July 13th, I'm not sure, in 2019. I know we had the camp meeting in Alberta in June, at the end of June of 2019. So I'm just looking at these numbers and saying, well, do these fit anywhere? And maybe there's some way to analyze all of these different dates that they give us some other span of time, but I don't know. Okay, so just looking at these numbers, and we're trying to find clues that confirm what I'm saying about this, that I believe that this represents the everlasting gospel in our movement. Now, the one that we have, of course, is the 2781. And now we've looked at this before, right, in dealing with shame, but relating to July 18, 2020, do people in the movement see July 18, 2020 as something shameful, that they're ashamed of?
How should they be ashamed of it?
Well, are people who were disappointed, are they ashamed of July 18, 2020? Right. And I'm taking that shame because it's the inversion of how we normally would represent July 18, because we usually go 1872 or 18720 as the digits. And this is 2781, so it's in reverse. Zero is not represented, but it's there. You just don't put it at the beginning of a number. So is this representing the class that are ashamed of July 18, 2020? Because you got the wise, they go to everlasting life, and then you have the wicked. They experience shame and everlasting contempt.
Okay, so in other words, they're experiencing this shame because they're fighting against something that was ordained of God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't see all the symbols I would like to see, but maybe there's some way in which we would have to look at this that I haven't considered. But it just seems to me that those that sleep in the dust of the earth that shall awake, that has to do with the 777 structure. So the 777 structure is going to start on November 9th, 2019. It's going to contain July 18, 2020, right? 252 days after November 9th, 2019. It's also going to have the March 27th, 2021 date in it. And then it's going to end with December 25th, 2021. And I'm saying that this is referring to that testing message in that period. And that I think that we would find in examining this, that there would be symbols that would tie us to that. But exactly where those symbols are, we see some of them, right? But we don't see all of the symbols that I would like. You know, the dust of the earth is going to bring us to, 2018, September 11th, a symbolic date when I'm in Arkansas. And then we have the 2781. And I probably should put just a footnote on that, even though we've looked at that number before. So footnote I would put here. 2718. Guess we should put an H there.
Wasn't it 2781?
Yeah. 2781. I just, you get those, and then 1872 is the other direction, right? So we usually have it represent that, right? So I put the 0 there because I could do this, right? You see what I'm saying? You don't normally put the 0 at the beginning of a number, but we can put it at the end. So it represents that, represents July 18, 2020. I could even just put it like this, right? Yeah, Ellen G. White was born in 1827. So we know that she was born in a date that has the different iteration of those digits. Okay. And then we have, so that to me is like the second angel's message, July 18, 2020, in that context. So it's the second major date. So, but I don't have anything that specifically references, other than that we awake. Like there's those that sleep in the dust of the earth, they shall awake. So if we count from 9/11, that word awake, so it's 6974, right? Yeah, 6974. And we looked at this before. It brings us to October 15th, 2020. And we didn't really have anything for that. I did look at what presentations were going on. That's going to be, I think it was in the study of Ezekiel, where we're looking at Ezekiel chapter 21, right? But we don't really have anything for that, other than just we have this date. Maybe there's these dates, if we put them all on a line, we took all of these different numbers and counted them from 9/11 or from 11/9, we might find some kind of structure or span between these various dates. We obviously have the symbol, it's the 27th day of the 7th month, so that's a symbol of July 27th, which has to do with Josiah Litch's prophecy. And so I don't know, right? So maybe there's some other thing I would look at. Okay. And then we have, so then when we address, so we're going to say that the shame and everlasting contempt, that's going to refer to those, the disappointment of July 18, 2020, and the result of that. Now, the everlasting contempt, so that's the shame. Could we put the everlasting contempt as December 25th, 2021? So I'm asking that question. Is there any way in which I could say that that is the third date? Okay, well, here's something a little bit obscure, but so if we go to 2001, and what we're going to do is we're going to count from my birthday, but we're going to count not from my birthday on the Julian calendar, which is February 6th, or the Gregorian calendar. I mean, we're going to count my birthday from the biblical calendar, which is the 11th day of the 11th month in 2001. And if we do that, it's actually February 5th. And if I count, that is the everlasting contempt, so that's 5769 plus 1860, we get 7629. And if I count that many days, it brings me to the end of December 25th, 2021. So would that be significant? Taking my birthday in 2001 rather than September 11th, 2001.
I say perhaps we could do that because you were the primary one who wanted us all to study on that date and to watch a bunch of presentations that went worldwide, and very few took you up on that.
Yeah, so there is,
they
yeah,
contempt.
yeah. So, and what there is on December 25th, 2001, we know there's lots of things that come into play there. There's Collins' study, there's Stevens' recognition of the 777 years from 457 to 321 to the year of the Sunday law. That's something that we should have noticed before, we didn't. And then there's the fact that there was this invitation being made to the movement to study together, which was rejected, right? So the Canadian American groups did not want to have the groups study together. They didn't want my group, if you want to call it my group, but our group. They didn't want us to be a part of that. And they weren't even interested in December 25th, 2021. So you know, they were giving lip service at that time to still maintaining July 18, 2020, but they had no interest in the end of the 777 days, which I found kind of amazing that they just, and this would be the contempt, right? What I call the everlasting contempt. And the contempt, in some ways, it's directed at the message, but it's also directed to me, to me as a person. And that's basically what I experienced from the Canadian and American group in connection with the end of the 777 days was contempt. That's all they had. So does that sort of seem to fit? I mean, I'm going
think it does.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a significant year. That significant year is 2001. So we can put this footnote here. So we have H5769 plus H1860. This equals is it 7629? So when I put 11th day, 11th month, we know that's the biblical calendar. In 2001, and of course it's already a symbol, 1111, to December 25th, 2021. When the contempt for the 777 days, that is the everlasting gospel, is demonstrated by the U.S. Okay, does that make sense? So we got from that 11/11 in 2001, I guess I could put that it's February 5th. So I think that makes sense to me. And also we can say we have everlasting contempt, right? So the fact that this is a rejection of the everlasting gospel, that seems to fit in as well. Okay? And the everlasting gospel also brings everlasting life. So there's the two classes there. So I think just in the language itself, we have these symbols of the everlasting gospel and a rejection of the everlasting gospel. Okay, so I want to look again at this. So I need to put this in here as well. So the everlasting life, we have the everlasting contempt and the everlasting life. And these contrast each other, right? Now, when I had looked at the everlasting life, right, we talked about that it went 1 day past my birthday on the one side, right? So that is, it's going to go 1 day past my birthday from 9/11. This other one, we go from December 21st, 2001, we go backwards. It goes 1 day past my actual birthday. It goes to my biblical birthday, the 11th day of the 11th month, which is when I was born in 1963, on the 11th day of the 11th month. On the biblical calendar, February 6th. So that's kind of interesting that one goes one day from the end of that 777 structure. It goes one day early, so to speak. And the other one from 9/11 goes one day late. And that's going to be, of course, this year, birthday, right? So it's going to go to February 7th instead of February 6th, 2024. But I think that's significant that we have that on either side of it. Now, what would that mean symbolically? I mean, it balances out, so to speak. But I think it's significant. H5769 plus H2416 days from okay. So we got it, one going one day early, one going one day late. Does that tell us something? So we've got February 5th and February 7th. My birthday's in between those. And we're taking the beginning of our this line, which we keep starting at 9/11 with these spans of time. And then it's going to bring us from December 25th, 2021. If we go back, so we're going back. That's how I counted it. So one day before my birthday. So is that kind of like bracketing the date?
That could be a way of looking at it.
Yeah. Okay. So it brackets February 6th as a symbol. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. And so it gives us, of course, I just got to see something here. Didn't put all these dates in here. Okay, so the number of days from my birthday to 9/11 in 2001, because it's not a leap year, is 217 days. And 217, interesting number or not?
Midnight in Raph.
Yeah. So we know raffia in 217 BC. We also have it as a symbol of July 21st, right? So it's a symbol of midnight.
Correct.
So that's kind of interesting. And then if we go, I'm just going to go here. Hmm. I'm just putting all these dates in this calculator. I don't see anything jumping out at me. Yeah, I have to think about that a little bit more. Okay, so we do have some things that tie it to this message. That's the main thing that we want to see, is it's tying us to the 777 structure as being to this movement, the everlasting gospel. That's to awaken the movement. So if we're going to put this in this paper in the red lettering, so they're going to awake. So we would just say that this is the message of the 777 days. So that's how we would look at it in the present truth application, right? It's the message of the 777 days, beginning at 9/11. So, and then we have the two classes. So some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So this everlasting, this shame, this is going to be, I'll just put here, equals July 18, 2020. It's kind of in the footnote already. And this everlasting contempt. So I want to put all these dates here. Starting at November 9th, 2019. July 18, 2020, and everlasting contempt. This is going to refer to December 25th, 2021. Which is going to end up on the next page. Okay, so we can see that that's going to, and that's going to end the 777 structure. Okay. Now then we have then the next verse, they that be wise. So the wise are going to be the people that obviously accept this, right? So they're going to shine as the brightness of the firmament. Now let's look at some of these Hebrew words here. So the word wise is sakal. It first occurs in Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. And of course, we know that's going to be the tree of knowledge of good and evil, where Eve is going to see that the tree was desired to make one wise, which is, of course, wrong. right? I mean, it is right in a certain sense. You're going to have the knowledge of good and evil, but that's not necessarily true wisdom. But we know also this is a test, right? So this is the test that's given to Adam and Eve. So there is the true wise, those that pass the test. And then the word itself, let me go back here. You need to see what I'm doing. Okay, so there we see wise, right? And then we have this word, well, the word wise, I want to look at just the definition, what it means to be prudent, be circumspect, wisely understand, prosper, right? To have insight of comprehension. So there's nothing particularly surprising about what the word wise means. We all know what it means. And then we have the word shine, zahar. We have looked at this word before, 2094, because it has to do with teaching. So the wise, they shine, but really they teach, admonish. They're shining lights, right? And it's also related to 2094 as well. But here you're going to see that there's 22 occurrences in the King James or in the Bible of that Hebrew word as the way defined by Strong. And you're going to see it's in Ecclesiastes 12:12. And further, by these, my son, be admonished. That word admonished is the word shine. Okay? And of course, of making many books, there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Okay. It also means warning. So we see it in Ezekiel chapter 3, the Watchman chapter, right? Therefore, Son of man, I've made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, hear the word at my mouth and give them warning. So does the wise shining have to do with the loud cry message, the message that happens after the message that we are developing and becoming a part of after December 25th, 2021? Can we see that this word shine, meaning to teach, to admonish, that's what has been happening and is what is going to continue to happen?
Yes, I can.
And then we have this word brightness. Now, brightness is Zohar. So they're very similar words. If you look at you got Zahar, right? Sahar, it's Tzadi, Ha, and Resh. And then you look at brightness, it's just the only difference is actually a vowel pointing. So it's spelled the same in the consonants. And it comes from this word, Zahar, so to admonish. But, it's translated as brightness or shining. Right? So it's just a vowel pointing, so brilliancy. And that's probably why they translated as shine instead of admonish as the brightness of the firmament. But the idea there is that this admonishment or teaching is a type of shining. So, to think of as a teacher as somebody who shines, I like it as a guitar teacher, because the idea is that you are to inspire people. You have to put out a lot of energy when you teach, to help the student with their discouragement. Teaching guitar is a little bit like being a psychologist in some way, but you have to understand the emotions of your students. And then we're going to have, so they're going to teach, right, or admonish as the brightness of the firmament. So 7549. Now that's properly an expanse, that is the visible arch of the sky. It's translated in the King James as the firmament, right? So Brown Drivers Briggs says an extended surface, solid expanse firmament, expanse flat as base support, firmament or the vault of heaven supporting waters above, considered by Hebrews as solid and supporting waters above. So the idea of a firmament, you can see where we get the word firm, right? It's something that supports. It's like, in a sense, like a foundation would. So the wise are going to be teaching a message that supports the message that was given 1840 to 1844, right?
That can work.
Yeah. So that means, and we also can't reject the message of July 18th. So anybody who's saying that July 18th and what we taught in that period was error would not be shining as the brightness of the firmament. Right? They would be not being admonishing according to the light that has come from the past. So here in this case, the wise are the ones who are teaching the message that was given. Those that go to shame and everlasting contempt, they're actually rejecting that light. Right? They're rejecting the light that comes from that message from December 25th, back to November 9th, including July 18, 2020. Okay? So you can see how we spent some time with this, and we can see how it fits in, looking at the words themselves and some of the Hebrew numbers. And I'm sure there's a lot more here that we have not noticed. Right? Any more thoughts about that verse or that part of that verse? They that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament.
Well, it reminds me of the casket and jewels dream too.
The which in Job?
No, I said it reminds me of the casket and jewels dream.
Oh, jewels. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was trying to piece together what you said. Yeah, so we have the casket, right? That's William Miller's dream. And of course, we know that those stones are going to be, and the gems and all those things are going to be found and placed in a casket that's going to shine 10 times brighter or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, 10 times bright.
Okay. Okay. And okay, so Okay, that's kind of interesting, but that's kind of a side. Okay, so now we got, so they're going to shine as the brightness of the firmament. Now, we have all these different numbers, and I'm just trying to look at some of them. Yeah, I don't know. So if I take the brightness of the firmament and I count from 9/11, it goes to my birthday in 2028. So I don't know if that's significant or not. But the fact that we keep getting my birthday is kind of odd. So 2096 plus, I'm just checking it again, 7549 is 9,645. Let's see if I'm doing that correctly. Yeah, so it goes to my birthday in February 6, 2028. So I think we should take a note of that. I'm not sure what it means. Be 65 then. I don't know if that matters. But we just keep having my birthday show up. So remember we had Stephen's birthday show up in that other, looking at verse 1. Was it verse 1? Yeah, we kept having Stephen's birthday show up. Yeah, it's not very good. So we'll go here. So H2096 plus H7549 equals 9,645 days from 9/11 to February 6th, 2028. So we just keep getting these February 6ths or thereabouts. Okay, so that coincidence occurs again on February 6th, and so we put it there in a footnote. So that's the brightness of the firmament. Okay, and then they that turn many to righteousness. Now, you can see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 English words and 2 Hebrew words. Now we see tzaddik, right? We see righteousness. 6663. We've looked at this word before. Let's go examine these words. Right, tzaddik, we can see that there, to be just, be righteous, to be justified, depends on the form that it's in. So it'd be in the nifal form if it means to be put or made right. Could be in, because it definitely wouldn't be in the hithpal form. So I haven't looked at which form it's in. Let's take a look in the Hebrew. So you can see right here. So it's got a mem at the beginning. You can see a vav. There's like a little straight line. Looks like just an L or something. But that's a vav. And that's just like and then it's going to have the idea of turning many. This is the mem at the beginning. Do people remember what a mem does to a word? So that so the mem prefix in Hebrew. Anybody remember? Usually means from, right? Now we got the lamed that means like to or against. You can kind of almost look at them as opposites, right? Okay. Now it's going to turn many to righteousness. But why doesn't it say many from righteousness if that's what the Hebrew means? Okay. And we don't have the word turn there at all in Hebrew. Now it is in the nifal form, so it means to make somebody righteous, or to turn to righteousness, right? So that's why it's in the hifal form. I say nifal, hifal. So it means to turn to righteousness. That's one of the meanings. It could mean to bring justice, but they have the mem at the beginning. Now, it wouldn't be turning many from righteousness, right? So, and the many, that's just the 7227, right? So they're going to turn to righteousness, many. But the reason why it has the mem is it's you're actually turning them from something to righteousness. So you're turning them about to righteousness is the idea. Okay. Okay, so we got, the translation of latter rain has to do with the teacher of righteousness. Angela's asking a question. Yeah, teacher of righteousness according to righteousness. That's going to be, I'm trying to remember. Do you remember the verse?
No, I'm trying to. Was it in Deuteronomy 32:2 or Hosea or something?
I always thought it was in Isaiah, but
Could be. It's been a long time since I looked at it.
let me see, I'll just type in. If you could find that, then you could be right. It could be Hosea 6-3. But yeah, I'm not sure. But that might be something to look at. But anyway, the idea is that we know that the latter rain is a message and that it has to be taught, right? So exactly which verse that is that we use that, I can't remember, but I should have remembered it. I'll find it, or somebody will find it. So they're going to turn many to righteousness as the stars. Okay. So if you add righteousness and stars together, you get 10,219. And you know about where that's going to bring us. Yeah. So if we counted from November 9th, 1989, it's going to bring us to November 1st, 2017, which is the 11th day of the 8th month on the biblical calendar. So kind of interesting, but whether that's significant. But I just put righteousness and stars. I didn't put the many, but righteousness and stars. Turn many to righteousness as the stars. Forever and ever.
Yeah, I found Joel 2:23. I think that's where we can find teacher of righteousness.
Yeah, that sounds right now, come to think of it. Yeah. And A.T. Jones does a presentation on that. And that's an interesting verse, in the context of 223, because we looked at that. 223 months is on an Islamic calendar is 18 years and 7 months, right? Was that correct? People remember that? Because an Islamic calendar just has lunar months. So, well, on our calendar, it would also be, because you just divide it by 12. So, 12 times 18 is 216 plus 7 is 223. So Joel 223 becomes a symbol of July 18th, right? And then, right, and you see here in the translator's notes, treasury of scripture knowledge. So that's when it's dealing with the former, or a teacher of righteousness, moderately according to righteousness is the alternate reading. Yeah. So that has to do with the former, reign moderately means a teacher of righteousness according to righteousness. Okay, so that's kind of interesting in the context of what we're looking at here in Daniel chapter 12. So that those that shine are admonishing, they're teachers. And they're going to turn many to righteousness, right? So we have a teacher of righteousness. And then it says, as the stars forever and ever. Now, can we equate this, the stars forever and ever, as having anything to do with righteousness? So when we look at stars, and our time's almost up here for today. But we have stars, you look it up, it's Kokab, of the star of a Messiah, brothers, youth, numerous progeny, personification, God's omniscience. Right, that's Brown Jarvis Briggs. Probably from 3522, which is Kaban, means to heap up, and 3554, Kava, which means to roll. So in the sense of blazing, like a blister, to burn. Okay. So they're going to have as stars forever and ever, and olam, right, and ad. So they're taking this word olam, and they're taking this word ad, which just means to continue forever, right? So it's two different words. They're not related words. So it just has to do, that you could translate it to the stars for all time would be one way to translate it. Okay. So I think we'll come back to that tomorrow and look at this a bit more in detail. But I think we're making progress here in looking at these verses. So I know we jumped back into these earlier verses, but knew there was things that we had to establish. So any final thoughts before we close with prayer? Okay. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you for the study this morning. We pray for your continued presence in our lives. We ask that we can cling to you. Thank you for working in the way that you do in our studies in the morning. We ask that you can help us in our personal study throughout the day. Bring us together again to study thy word according to thy will. We pray and ask in Jesus' name.